right, everybody. Well, welcome to church. Looking forward to being together here and getting the word together. It's been an eventful day so far. I mean, I don't know if you see a bunch of the T-shirts for the Spartan race people, but they all looking a little bit sore too. They're kind of limping in a little bit. I'm surprised. I was looking for the smell of Bengay, but I didn't smell it when I walked in. But it has been a pretty eventful December so far. I know we got our Christmas cookie thing coming up on Wednesday, which I've actually heard that apparently there's some bad blood from last year because apparently people broke the rules and didn't bake cookies. They baked brownies and broke the rules. So there's still some people that are sore about this. I'm actually just really confused about this vegan, healthy cookie thing. What is that, like a biscuit, or is it just dirt on a tray? Is that what vegan cookies are? But yeah, a lot of things going on in December, right? We got Christmas parties have already gotten started. You know, today's the 10th, right? So we're officially in double digits. But I've already been to 2 Christmas parties in December. The playoffs are looming. I know those of you that are doing fantasy football are very nervous because this is the first week of the playoffs for fantasy football. But I want to encourage you, sacrifice, put your phone down. Nothing's going to change by you watching what's happening, okay? Jesus first. Let's try that. I'm losing, I know that, so it doesn't really matter for me. But as much as there's I still haven't put the lights up on my house, though. I'm feeling a little bit behind this year, and I'm progressively getting to a place that I just don't care anymore. We're just going to be that house that doesn't have lights on, but we've got a beautiful tree inside. But the last couple weeks, you know, we've been doing this little micro series, as I would call it, on true religion. There's our little slide there. And the point of this time together is, as we close out the year and really go into the holidays, we wanted to really focus on what Jesus really considers religion to be. Amen? I want to show you the verse again that is where this theme comes from. It says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And the brother of Jesus is trying to remind us that religion that honors God, that Jesus was really trying to teach us, has nothing to do with what goes on in this building. Nothing to do with what's happening right now as we sit here. Sunday services, a nice building, comfy seats, beautiful music. This is not what's at the core of true religion. It's important. Church is absolutely biblical, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you guys so much for you visiting with us. We're glad you're here with us. But James was trying to remind us that true religion does not have as much to do with what goes on in here, but out there. That if you sitting here on Sundays, if this has become your religion, you miss the whole point of who Jesus is and what he was trying to teach us. Church is awesome, it's biblical, but it's meant to strengthen us, to remind us of who Jesus is, to get a chance to meet with our brothers and sisters, but to equip us to go into the world, to live righteously, and to look hurting people in the eye and take care of them in the best way that we can. And honestly, I've needed this as a reminder for myself, to focus on loving other people and taking care of the needs of others. These last couple weeks have made me really think a lot about my daughter too. My oldest is 3 years old. I got to say oldest now. I have to tell myself I have kids. My oldest is 3 years old, and then she's at an age where she's picking up on everything. What you say, how you say it, our mannerisms. It's kind of become a game around my house too, between me and my wife, to like wonder, okay, did she get that from me or you? Because it's not just the things that she's saying. Like, she'll do this little side talk. Yeah, I'm like, that's you, Kelsey. But along with that, she picks up very easily on our attitude towards each other. Like she'll if there's any kind of tension at all with my wife and I are talking to her, she goes, guys. Calm down. She's also very aware, you know, I don't know who said it might have been me, that she started picking it up from, but saying like, oh, I hate that. She started getting in the habit of it, so we're like, okay, we don't say hate in this house. She locked that away, and anytime that word gets thrown out at our house in any context, we don't say hate, Mommy. We don't say hate, Daddy. But it has made us much more cautious and aware of the things that we say and do, right? But it's made me ask that question in the bigger picture of things too. What am I teaching my daughter? What am I imprinting on her little heart? And this focus on the needy has even reminded me a lot of prayers that I prayed for her before she was ever born. That one of my biggest prayers for my daughter was God, I want her to love you, and I want her to love the people around you. And I want those people to see you in her. And so as we focus on loving the needs of others, this is a big part of that. It's made me think a lot more about this. Because really, my daughter is going to learn true religion not by what she experiences here at church, by what she sees her daddy doing all the other days of the week. When Jesus called us to be disciples, the real meaning of that word, disciple, is a student imitator. It's not somebody that just sits in church on a Sunday, but it's somebody that would watch him, learn from him, and imitate not just what he did, but how he did it and why he did it. And the truth is, his own disciples struggled with this constantly. The guys that were walking with Jesus almost every single day missed this. They would focus on the wrong things. They would try to maybe do what Jesus did, but miss the heart that Jesus was trying to communicate, or not have the faith that Jesus was trying to draw out of them. And it seems like if you actually go through a study of the Gospels and look at how he taught his disciples, most of it was not a bunch of how-tos. It was mostly trying to get their heart to a different place. Like, no, okay, yeah, you guys are doing this stuff, but you're still missing what I'm trying to teach you. Because Jesus' goal was not just to help people, but to care about people. I want to say a prayer here, and I'm going to jump into our last sermon on true religion together. If you need it here, I'll put the title up there now. The title for today is Love Hurts. Let's say a prayer. God, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity that we get right now to be in your word together, to sit at Jesus' feet, to really try to absorb the heart that he was trying to communicate to us, God. That you don't want just a bunch of robotic followers, God. You want people that are really trying to live and love the way that Jesus did. I pray that our hearts and our minds would be open, that we'd be ready to hear what you have to teach us today. I pray, God, for me and any insecurities or whatever might be getting in the way of your message. I pray that we would walk away tonight convicted and challenged, but also inspired to want to go out into the world to love other people. We love you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So our title again is Love Hurts. And we'll kind of see a little bit more about that. If you got a Bible, turn it over to Matthew chapter 14. I want to look at a story here together. Now, the setting that we're in here is Jesus had just gotten word that his cousin John the Baptist was killed. He was killed by Herod, and Herod was struggling with all kinds of stuff. That he was threatened by John and did this whole thing with his family. It's a really crazy, ugly situation. But his cousin, one of his closest confidants, one of the only men on the planet that really understood who he was and what he was about, had just gotten killed. And not only that, Herod is looking for him too. And so he's in a situation right now. It's not a very pleasant one. He's mourning the death of his family member. He's on the run from a king that wants to kill him. And this is where we pick up in verse 1, or in verse 13 rather, sorry. It says, when Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. Bring them here to me, he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. We'll stop there. Now, this might be a familiar passage to us. It's pretty well known, Jesus feeding the 5,000. But I want us to take a second here to put ourselves into Jesus' shoes for a moment. Okay? Before these 5,000 people showed up, what would you be feeling if you were Jesus? This is rhetorical. I don't want to get responses. I just want you to think about it for a second. Your cousin was just killed. You're on the run. How would you be feeling? You think you'd be encouraged about life? Ready to love other people? Serve and give? Probably not. If you're like me, you probably want to, just like Jesus did, get off to a solitary place by yourself to mourn, to grieve, to pray, to try to get your mind right. But I don't want to be around people. I want to be by myself. Then how would you feel about 5,000 to 10,000 people showing up and invading your private space while you are grieving the loss of your family and hiding out from a guy that wants to kill you? Because that's what just happened. Jesus, understandably just needs some quiet time by himself, just to grieve, to deal with his heart, and then thousands of people show up. What would you do? You think you'd be ready to serve and give? Or maybe just try to slink into the crowd and get away? That's everything in my head, that's what I would do. Or just try to cover up my head, walk my way through a crowd, and try to find a way to get away from everybody. But that's not what Jesus does. In the middle of this heavy time of his life, a time of mourning, a time of suffering personally, feeling the loss from his cousin, he looks at the crowds, he looks at these thousands of people that are all up in his business, and says something very powerful about what he felt. He said he had compassion on them. When he saw these thousands of people, he didn't get frustrated. He didn't say, "What are you doing here? Just leave me alone. Give me my space." It says that he looked on the crowds and he felt compassion. This word is a powerful word. It comes from a Greek word. I feel like every time I come up here, I'm teaching you guys a new Greek word. I'm kind of becoming that guy. By the time I leave the desert, whenever that's going to be, you guys are going to be very well versed in original Greek. But the word compassion that shows up here, it's a Greek word. I've practiced this a lot. It's splachnizomai. Okay, try to say that with me. Splachnizomai. I know that's a tongue twister. It's a lot of fun. This is actually a really powerful word. So when you hear compassion, it might make you feel some different things. You might kind of get the picture of watching the Puppies video with Sarah McLachlan singing, in the arms of the, but the word splagnitzomai, what it really means is it means a pain that you feel in your bowels, a pain in your stomach and in your heart. It means to be sickened personally by the pain and the suffering that you see in the people around you. That when Jesus saw these crowds in the middle of his mourning, what he felt was not irritation. It wasn't, "What the heck are you doing here?" It was just a pain in his stomach over the condition of the people that were needing help. I'm not sure what your definition of compassion is, but that's not my definition of it. It's to maybe feel some stuff and then kind of go about my day. Jesus' version of compassion, it caused him that in the middle of his own mourning, in the middle of all the stuff that he could have been feeling himself, says he looked on these people and he felt a pain in his gut for the people that were coming up to get help. And point number 1 of our sermon today is hurt. What I mean by that is it's the ability to hurt for the people that are around us. To really experience true religion, to really love like Jesus loved people, we have to be willing to hurt the way that Jesus hurt for people. And I don't know about you, but this is one of the most difficult things in the world for me. It is so hard for me to hurt for the needs of people. To let myself go to that place where I'm willing to look into the eyes of someone who is suffering and really just feel for them. And it's really not that I don't want to. I really do love people. I want to care about people, but I don't want to feel this because guess what? It hurts. I don't want to look at people suffering and feel what they feel. What fun is that? But this is where Jesus was constantly. You know, this is fighting against that part of us that when you see those ads on TV for like St. Jude's Children's Hospital or you know, in Africa, they're looking for building wells and stuff, and you just kind of want to skip ad or fast forward or just kind of change the channel. Like, oh, I don't want to feel that right now. I don't want to really think about the suffering of the people in the world. I just want to watch my show. That's where I'm at on a regular basis. I can feel like I need to be in the mood or emotionally ready to handle this. I gotta be spiritually prepared to really hurt for people. And like I said, the truth of the matter is I really like helping people. I really do. I knew when I was in college and I was trying to figure out even what my major was, I didn't really care what I landed on. Ultimately, I just knew whatever I did, I wanted it to be something that would help other people. But I want to help people kind of without hurting for them. You know what I mean? And honestly, I think this is partly where the disciples were at in this story. When you look at verse 15, as these thousands of people are going on, we don't know how long it was, but they're there healing, they're helping Jesus to take care of the needs of these people. And then finally they kind of just get to this point where they're just kind of done. All right, the sun's going down, and they hit their limit. They've been serving people, and they were finished. They kind of got their hours in. Let's go home now. But Jesus wasn't done yet. Because the truth of the matter is, Jesus never stopped caring about the needs of others. He didn't just care about their diseases and their demon possessions. He cared about their hunger as well. Imagine if you went to the doctor for a checkup and he fed you afterwards. Like, that's full service right there, right? I mean, this is essentially what Jesus just did here. Yeah, come on over here. Leprosy, I got that. Blindness, we got that. Okay, you hungry? Here's some bread and some fish. That's what Jesus just did. This is full service healing right here. But I think Jesus was trying to teach them a bigger lesson about how to hurt for the whole person. How to think about the whole person and not just the immediate problem. The disciples had done their time, and I'm sure they were watching the sun go down thinking, who's going to pay for dinner? Because I don't got it. But there were needs that could be met, and Jesus was willing to meet. This is going beyond just showing up for some Martin Luther King project and throwing paint on the wall. Or dropping off a care bag for somebody or handing $1 to somebody that you see on the street. Jesus is trying to help us here the same way he was trying to help his disciples to go deeper into thinking and caring about the needs of the people that we're around constantly. It's taking the time to talk to someone, to hear their story and feel with them and feel for them. There was this experiment that was done, I found, by a psychologist named Pier Carlo Valdesolo, where they were trying to measure what compassion can really do for people. And so they had these two people go into a room with these headphones on, and they had to work together. They would hear these tones on the headphones, and they had to like hit this buzzer at the same time and work together to make sure that they got the tones. And then they took one of those people out, and one of the people was a plant. The other person, they took him out and they had him watch through glass to do the same thing with another partner, except the other partner was a plant as well and would mess up on purpose. And the downside of that was if they messed up, they had to do word problems for every time that they messed up. And so this other person is intentionally sabotaging. So this person's behind the glass watching their previous partner just like get everything wrong. And then what they did afterwards is they measured how much that person behind the glass was willing to want to go in to help that person finish their word problems so that they could get out. And what they found through this study is that compassion has this powerful ability to motivate people to do things that they wouldn't normally be thinking about. That the idea of just even being in that moment and feeling with that other person, having just even any kind of slight connection, even if it's just pushing a button together, could create enough compassion to say, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna get down here and I'm gonna help fix this for you. That science has figured out what Jesus was trying to communicate thousands of years ago. That compassion is really where love starts. Real compassion hurts with people, but it moves you to help and to follow up, and it doesn't stop until needs are fully met. Point number 2 is give. One of the things that I love about this story is what Jesus can do with a little. They have this massive crowd of people there, right? And they're all hungry. Now again, imagine 10,000 hangry people. Okay, like think about the ones that like haven't gotten healed yet and they're hungry and they still gotta walk home. Like that, like this is realistically probably what they were dealing with. A bunch of hangry people. Anxious people that have problems that only Jesus can fix. This is your audience. Now Jesus looks at you and says, feed them. All right, I got to go run down to Smart and Final or McDonald's. Like Zemini got a donkey and a cart. We can go pick some stuff up. Like this is a problem we're in here. And you're looking down at your 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. We can't do it. The math doesn't add up. And Jesus tells him something powerful with this. I love this. He said, look, Jesus, all we got is 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus tells him, he says, okay, bring that here to me. Give me your little morsels. Bring it over here and I'll show you what I can do with that. He prays. He breaks the bread and the fish. And he gives enough pieces out that after feeding thousands upon thousands of people, there are 12 basketfuls left over of food. And everybody was satisfied. Now, for those of you science people, try to do the physics, the math on that, and try to figure out how Jesus pulled this one off. It doesn't work, right? This is beyond our scope of understanding. Jesus took the little bit that they had and multiplied it beyond anything that anybody could have imagined. And oftentimes I can struggle with feeling like I don't really have very much to give. Whether it be my time, my money, food that's readily available in my car if I find somebody, or maybe it's just even emotionally. Sometimes I feel like, man, I don't really have a whole lot to offer here. There's not really much that I can give to this person. And lately, this has been even more of a truth for me. Because lately, man, with some of the stuff that's been going on with my family, with my dad, with my brother, being a new dad again and wrestling with not sleeping very regularly, the weight that I can feel with the ministry and the church, I can just feel very emotionally and very mentally tapped. Like I'm just done. I'm running on fumes. I'm running on empty. I can barely keep my own head above water, let alone think about this guy that's on the street holding up a sign. You feeling me? I can't love somebody else right now because I don't have much love or energy to give. And I can feel like, man, I've only got 5 loaves and 2 fish to give to a world that's hurting. An entire world that's hurting. But Jesus looks at that. Looks at me. Looks at that little that I feel like I've got left and he goes, bring it to me. Bring me what you got. Let me show you what I can do with that. What Jesus cares about is not how much do you have to give, it's about your willingness to give. If all you got is 5 minutes, if all you got is $1, are you willing to give it? Because what could Jesus do with $1? What could Jesus do with 5 minutes? What could Jesus do with a little? If he took 5 loaves and 2 fish and fed thousands, what could he do with that little bit that you've got? And the reality here is, legitimately, sometimes that's all we can do. That's all you've got left in the tank. That may be all you've got time for. Not trying to just bash you on the head. If you're a guilty soul like me, maybe you're just feeling like, I'm just a loser. I just need to keep giving more. I just need to keep giving more until my bank account goes empty. I got nothing left. That's not what I'm saying. Legitimately, there are times in our lives where we don't have very much to offer. But can you give what you got? Are you willing to stop in the busyness of your life and what you feel to give something and let God work? You know, I was debating whether or not I was going to share this, but we'll go ahead and share it anyways. You know, I encountered this earlier this week. I was out actually here on Washington, and I saw a guy holding a sign over here on 42nd. And I was kind of in that mode of like, oh, do I really have time? I got someplace to be. They're like, no, just stop it. Just go. And I ended up going, and I got him some groceries real quick, and I went over to try to chat with him for a second. And he ended up going across the street, and I followed him over to where the Walgreens was. And he took this bag of groceries that I got for him, and he walked behind this bush. I didn't see him, but I heard him talking. There's another guy sitting on the ground on the other side of these bushes. And I went over there, and he was actually talking about me, but I went over there to talk to them. Their names are Jeff and Dean. And I just kind of sat with them for a little bit. And Dean was a former veteran, sitting just kind of by himself. They'd kind of created this little nook over there, and we're hanging out. But Jeff took out some of the groceries I gave to him and was giving them to Dean, and we just sat there and talked for a little bit. And afterwards, you know, as I was getting ready to go, Dean looked up to me and he said, you know, I really appreciate you coming in and carrying a conversation with me. So, you know, I don't meet very many people like that anymore. And I walked away from that, and a couple things happened. I think there's the part of me that was just struck by what I could have missed if I had not stopped. Kind of the goody feelings and stuff, but also the part of me that was just like, man, how important is 5 minutes? How much did 5 minutes just affect this guy's day, his life? And I'm not saying this to try to make myself look good or anything like that to you guys, because this is a struggle for me constantly. And I didn't walk away from that feeling really all that great. I walked away from it feeling more humbled than anything. Just thinking, man, I am so selfish. What is wrong with me if I think that I'm too busy for 5 minutes? But the truth is, if that's all you got, that's all you got. That 5 minutes maybe completely changed that guy's day, maybe his week. And I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to run into them again. If you see him 42nd in Washington, right down the street, Jeff and Dean, tell him Jake sent you. But it was great to be able to sit there. Found out he was in the service right after my grandfather was. And so it was a cool little interaction there. But it just made me think, man, I have something to give. I always have something to give. And I will say, now it is one thing to have the time, the food, or money, and to give a little. I want to say something about that real quick. This is the compassion part of the sermon that sometimes we need to get, you know, we need to keep ourselves in check. You know, it's that part of you when you see someone, you're kind of looking through your wallet and you see that $5 bill, but you also see that $1 bill. And you just go, here's the $1 bill, but then you drive away ashamed of yourself. Yeah, that was meant to be a little bit more lighthearted, but I know you guys are feeling that because you're in the struggle with me too. That sometimes we do need a heart check and just go, no, I've got more to give than I tend to give. But if all you got is a little, then just give what you got. But there's also times when sometimes we just need to prioritize serving more than we do. And as I think about some of the most important things that I want to teach my daughter, Some of the things that I most want her to take away from her dad, this is one of them. I don't want her just to know what the Bible says. I don't want her just to know how to pray, but I want her to know how to really care and have compassion for the people that are around her. But the truth of the matter is, I can't teach it to her if it's not a priority for me. I can't teach her a lesson verbally that she doesn't see me living. Hurting, loving, and healing people is who Jesus was. Over the next 2 chapters, what's interesting here, I want to just kind of briefly skim over this, but chapters 14, 15, and a little bit 16 really kind of just, it's one continuous story. It covers a couple different days where Matthew's just kind of telling us some of the things that Jesus experienced. So after he feeds the 5,000, he loads the disciples up in a boat and sends them across the water, and that's where he walks on water, and you get the whole experience with Peter. They get to the other side of the boat, and if you look in verse 34 of chapter 14, it says, when they crossed over, they landed, and the men of that place recognized Jesus, and they sent word to all the surrounding country. People brought all their sick to him and begged him to let the sick touch just the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. So he just gets done feeding 5,000 and healing people, goes across the water, and there's another group of people waiting for him. And then you get the experience as that's going on where the Pharisees come up, and they're off in La La Land too. While Jesus is healing people, they want to challenge him about washing hands. It's a smart thing to do with Jesus. So this says he leaves there and goes to another place, and there's a woman who's got a demon-possessed daughter waiting for him. So he takes care of her. And it says, then Jesus left there in verse 29 of chapter 15 and went along the Sea of Galilee. And then he went up to the mountainside and sat down, and great crowds came to him. Actually, went here. That's what I want to read together. Turn over there if you can for a second. Verse 29. In verse 29, it says, Jesus left there and went along the Sea of Galilee. Then he went up on a mountainside and sat down. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, and the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way. His disciples answered, where could we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd? You seeing a trend? Well, how many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied, and a few small fish. And then Jesus does what he does again. You know what's interesting about this? People were constantly on Jesus' path wherever he went. You don't really read Jesus getting too many solitary moments by himself, because wherever he went, crowds followed. And it wasn't just like people that were trying to challenge him, it was people that had problems. But what amazes me about all this is that Jesus, we don't really read about him ever getting frustrated with the constant stream of needy people in his way. He never said, guys, look, I'm trying to get to Jerusalem to preach. I'm trying to do what God called me to do, and you guys are interrupting me. He never said that. But what he did get frustrated with is he got frustrated with the Pharisees and his own disciples for not having the heart to care about these people. Jesus allowed himself to be interrupted constantly. And here, as we just read in this story, got another crowd of people, and this time it says he's been with them for 3 days, and he looks at his disciples again, and this time it's 4,000, not 5. Jesus goes, all right, guys, let's get them some food. Where are we going to get bread to feed all these people? They were still missing it. They had experienced this exact same miracle no more than a week earlier, and they're still questioning what Jesus could do. Like, this is literally wash, rinse, repeat. There's nothing about this that's new. Like there's a part of me where you just expect Jesus to face palm and just say, guys, seriously? We just went over this. But they were again too focused on the math not adding up in their own point of view to miss what Jesus was doing. The truth of this is I take some comfort in knowing that the disciples didn't always have a grasp of true religion. They were with the Messiah every single day, and they still missed this. But Jesus kept helping them. And we have to be reminded that true religion takes notice of the people that are in need. It sees them, it looks them in the eyes, it hurts for them, and it moves you to give something. I don't want my daughter to be some goody two-shoes church kid. There's a lot of those in the world today. I was one of them. I want her to learn compassion and love that doesn't just meet needs, but is willing to hurt with people and to care about them in their situations in their life. And I want you just to take a second, church. Just imagine with me. What would be different this week? What would be different about Desert Cities if every single person in this room decided to practice true religion this week? Imagine if each and every one of us decided to have splachnitzomai, to care about the people that were around us. What would be different about where we live? What would change? This is what I want you to keep in your mind and your heart this week. This is not just a sermon. I'm not here to try to make you feel bad or to try to just make you feel goody two-shoes things about yourself and just try to get you to give money. The goal of this is, guys, is that this is who Jesus was. And this is who he wants us to be if we're going to be Christians. I love you guys so much. Let's go out and let's practice true religion, church.